Welcome to this Advent devotional series. This is day 18 of our series. I am Reverend Lester Spees, and I have the privilege of serving as pastor at Memorial Lutheran Church in Glendale, Wisconsin. During this Advent season, I will be reflecting on some tough questions that come from Scripture and on some sacred spaces that have helped me to respond to those tough questions. Thank you for joining me in this journey. This devotion is for Wednesday, December 14th, 2022. And our tough question comes from Matthew chapter 16, verse 15. He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" I was blessed with a wonderful opportunity for my internship year at seminary. Instead of serving that year at a traditional parish where all, or at least almost all, of my classmates served, I got to serve at the Lutheran campus ministry at Penn State. This experience was unique in so many ways. First, the vast majority of parishioners were students involved in the undergraduate and graduate school programs that were offered at Penn State. The parish was, of course, open to everyone. So sometimes we had a faculty member or two at worship. Sometimes we had alumni stop by to worship because they were visiting the campus at the time. Sometimes we had a community member or guest who was just passing through town with no connection with the campus other than being in the area. But the primary audience was young, college-aged students. Most traditional parishes, or any parish for that matter, did not look like Lutheran campus ministry at Penn State. Secondly, I worked with the pastoral team that included a senior pastor, an associate pastor, and the intern pastor. Worship services were held each Sunday morning at Eisenhower Chapel on the main campus of Penn State, with one of us presiding at worship, one of us preaching, and one of us greeting worshipers and being a worshiper. These responsibilities were divided out equally, so that by the end of the year, all three of us, regardless of title or status, had equal time as presider, preacher, and worshiper. Since I was not ordained at the time, I had to get special permission to preside at Holy Communion under the supervision of the senior pastor. My local bishop granted that permission. In addition to the Sunday morning services, we had a Wednesday night service that took place at an off-campus parish that was within walking distance of the campus, Grace Lutheran Church. And when we were in charge of the Wednesday night service, we did everything on our own. The other two team members were there to support the leader and greet worshipers, but they did not have any worship leadership responsibility. Third, Eisenhower Chapel was a shared space. Numerous Christian denominations, as well as groups from other faith traditions, used this same chapel space. Each ministry had an assigned hour for worship and a separate time and space for fellowship following worship. And somehow we all managed to work together well and solve any problems or issues that did occur by talking to one another and coming up with solutions. In theory, the internship year is a time when you get to practice ministry so that you can use those experiences to help you once you are ordained, to know how to fulfill the expectations of an ordained pastor. I served two other times in team ministry situations where there were 2 or 3 full-time ministers of word and sacrament as part of the team. But this model that seemed to work so well in campus ministry was non-existent in those traditional parishes. Internship prepared me for what could have been and for what I wish ministry would always be, but it did not prepare me for what such team ministries were actually like in traditional parish settings. In campus ministry, each person had a voice, and that voice was celebrated and supported and encouraged. In the traditional parishes, the only voice that was generally allowed to speak was the senior pastor. Other team members could speak, but only with words assigned by the senior pastor. In Eisenhower Chapel, each of us had a voice. Each of us were empowered and encouraged to use that voice. Each of us could, and we were encouraged to, share the gospel in the way we felt called to share. In Eisenhower Chapel, we learned to work with people from other traditions, to share space, to show respect for one another, and to learn more about what it meant that we are all children of God. In Eisenhower Chapel, status did not matter. In Eisenhower Chapel, I got to see a model of ministry that I grew to miss very much in future years. I know that my ministry context since my time at Penn State have been different and remain different even today. But I still try to apply those important lessons learned in and around Eisenhower Chapel. And I still have hope that such empowering ministries exist somewhere in the church. I want to believe that my experience isn't as unique as I thought it was.